Welcome to this package, which is going to talk about project brief process. The first thing that we should be doing is talking about the definition of the project brief process itself. Now, the briefing process happens quite early in the project, where the client and the project managers are interacting directly. Basically, the project manager is acting as an advisor to the client to tell them about different intricacies of the project and helping them to make the decisions. The project manager who is involved in the overall explanation of such projects is responsible to do this in written form as a formal document, so there is a record which is legally binding, and also to sort out other expertise which might be very specialized in nature. So let's talk about what is generally in a project brief. Well, project brief is a general statement. It could ideally be in a written form, but could also be an oral statement. It generally summarizes the scope of the project, the concept and the strategy and means of execution, how the project is going to be executed. Basically, it outlines the overall understanding and tries to map what is in the mind of the project manager and how it fits the overall strategy and plan of the organization. It's quite important and at times could be a legal record of what was agreed or what was proposed at the beginning of the project between the client and the project manager. Project briefs have to be detailed and quite technical at times, and a mistake made at the project brief stage could lead to a lot of inefficiencies and inability to meet project objectives. There are several problems that can be attributed to project brief, and there are quite a few reasons that these problems crop up in a project brief. One of the important issues is that sometimes there is little or poor initial assessment of what the client's real needs are. There are also unclear roles and responsibilities for people involved in the project and different stakeholders. Sometimes we are overtly too optimistic about the project programming and timescales. It is often seen that projects that are quite technical in nature might have missing or imprecise or conflicting information. And in some cases, people just didn't do enough to hire probably an expert or technical consultant to get more visibility into some of the problems being faced by the project team. And this leads to a lot of problems. Some of the other problems with the project brief could be the difficulty of the client in actually visualizing the finished product or the project that you're trying to propose or the project the manager is trying to propose. There might be a disconnect between the client and the real users of the project, who might be different from the client, and because of that, an improper or inadequate project brief might be formulated. There might be lack of appreciation by the client of the real technical constraints that probably a product or system design team might be facing in terms of technology and other constraints which might lead to demands that often cannot be met, leading to a conflict or a bad project brief. There are several things we can do to ensure that the project brief and the whole process goes on as smoothly as possible. The first thing is the establishment of the client empowerment. The client needs to be empowered to convey what they desire. Now, that doesn't mean that every possible desire would be met, but they should be in a position to convey their desires. There also needs to be a management, an appropriate level of management, of project dynamics between different stakeholders, between contractors and subcontractors who are going to be involved and actually execute the project. Appropriate involvement of the end user is another important step that one can take in order to ensure that the project brief is appropriate and the project briefing process is also appropriate. We can use some new visualization techniques that we have the luxury of using given the new revolution in IT. For example, in the construction sector, you have technologies such as BIM, that's Building Information Modeling. In the aerospace sector, there are all kinds of 3D tools that you can use. Similarly, in the automobile sector, there are quite a few 3D tools that could be used for analysis. Now, there also needs to be an appropriate team-building process. This team-building process is going to help us to have everyone on board and everyone singing from the same hymn sheet, so that all the stakeholders and the clients know what is being delivered, why it's being delivered, how it's being delivered, and when eventually all of it will be delivered.